So, welcome. Would you like to say your name, occupation, and your hometown?
So my name is Francesca. I work full time in HR, and as well as that, I'm the founder of Change Blueprint, and I live in London.
So, what is Change Blueprint?
Change Blueprint is basically an initiative which aims to provide education around money management and home ownership to those mainly from disadvantaged backgrounds.
Okay. So, if we go into more your educational history, what path
Mhm.
did you choose after going to college or sixth form?
So I ended up doing an apprenticeship. For me personally, I didn't really want to go to uni. I did apply because in my sixth form, you had to apply whether you wanted to go or not. But I knew that I did not want to go. So I ended up doing an apprenticeship in a real estate company, and I did my apprenticeship in a HR role, which I still work in HR now, 5 years later. Um, so yeah, I decided to do an apprenticeship mainly because I'm more of a practical learner. So the university route where it's so theoretical, that just was not for me at all.
So, it's more of like the studying, the going in, revising. It's just what
Yeah,
you're like hands-on kind of. That,
exactly. And for me, like if I'm learning something, I prefer to just be able to learn it in practice. So I can't really learn from someone just telling me something. I have to do something in order to actually learn. So for me, doing an apprenticeship made the most sense because I'd literally be doing the job.
on
And
hand.
with exactly as well as doing a qualification, but because I was in a job, all the things that I was learning in my qualification, I was actually applying in practice to see how it works in the real world.
Hmm.
And it was actually kind of a fast track into HR because
Hmm.
a lot of the people, like some of my friends who are in HR now, they went to uni. Their courses were obviously like 3, 4 years,
Hmm.
and then they were asking me to if I could help them getting jobs. Um,
So you had the
and then
experience
like
behind you.
exactly, so where everyone went to uni, they did their course for like 4 years, came out, could have been looking for a job for up to a year, and then got into HR. Whereas I went into HR literally straight after sixth form, 2 years after my apprenticeship. So after my apprenticeship finished after 2 years, I went into a job that had more responsibility, a higher pay, etc. So during the 4 years that people were studying, I was kind of earning money, saving
Kind of doing
money,
your thing, yeah.
still having
So
fun.
let me ask. So if you could go back, obviously now you've chosen this
Mm.
path, would you go back and change the route you took?
No, definitely not.
So what do you
Absolutely.
think the advantages and disadvantages of the route you took? Obviously, you chose to go right into apprenticeship. What do you say the
Mhm.
disadvantages of going right into apprenticeship is?
So, well, I think it can be quite a bit of a shocker because obviously at 18, where you're in college and you're kind of just in that phase of living your best life
Hmm.
in some way, I guess. To then jump into full-time work is quite a big, it's
Jump.
quite a bit exactly, it's quite a big jump. Um so I guess that is kind of not a disadvantage, but it can be something that is a bit hard to deal with at first. Like my first week of working full time, I was shattered. Like it took me a while to get used to it. And then I know like a lot of people say that, oh, you don't get as much of a social life as university students, which is true because obviously you're working
Hmm.
Monday to Friday most of the time. However, I wouldn't say that you're restricted from a social life completely, simply because all of literally every single one of my friends went to uni, and the majority of them went to uni outside of London. But because I was earning money, I used to go and visit my friends in their unis on the weekend, go and
You
live
don't
that
miss
uni life
out.
on the weekend, come back, and I wouldn't come back broke. So
Oh,
I kind of did get the best
best
of
of
both
both
worlds.
worlds.
But as well, I think another disadvantage could, and it won't be a disadvantage for everyone, but depending on where you do your apprenticeship in terms of company, some companies, like I know some other friends who have done apprenticeships, and the companies that they did their apprenticeship with just weren't great in terms of supporting them and like the training provider that they used, etc. So I guess the disadvantage is if you end up in maybe, well, I don't know, quotation, a bad apprenticeship.
Hmm. What are the advantages of doing an
Mhm.
apprenticeship?
Okay, so the first one is the experience that you gain. Because especially from working in HR, where I've recruited for people to actually bring people into organizations. And I'll be very honest, the main thing that companies will look at is your experience. Because if you go to uni, you learn all these things in practice, but okay, let me just be blunt. If you have a degree and you've had no form of experience throughout the whole of your degree, good luck in getting a job, basically. Because if all you have is a degree and a company has 3,000 applications, literally your degree is just a piece of paper. So unless you have other things on your CV in terms of experience or volunteering or any form of experience, um, then you don't really stand out. So the biggest thing with apprenticeships is that you have experience from the jump. So even if you decide that you want to go to uni after doing an apprenticeship, you've already got experience on your CV. And apprenticeships are at least like 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, some are even 3 years. So if you have that amount of experience on your CV, that is extremely valuable if you have a degree on top of that. Um, and then the other thing is obviously the money.
Of course.
um, so with an apprenticeship, you get paid. And there are a lot of apprenticeships that pay very well. Like considering if you're only 18 years old, there's a lot of apprenticeships that are offering minimum like 18K a year. And then you might get like bonuses on top of that and other benefits on top of that as well. And then because a lot of people don't tend to do apprenticeships, if all your friends went to uni, if you're earning like at least 18K a year, a lot of that you're going to be able to save, or you should be able to save, because all your friends are elsewhere and scattered across the UK in uni. So I think those are like the two
Amazing.
main benefits. And as well, I think on top of that, it's just understanding. It kind of depends on each individual, but in terms of making the most out of your apprenticeship, you will learn more than just your job in an organization. So, for example, when I did my apprenticeship, I spoke to people outside of the HR department. So, I was learning about different roles within the business. I was learning different things about how the business actually operates. And that has then helped me in other areas outside of my job. So, even with things like with starting up Change Blueprint and stuff like that, or managing money and looking at how like a business looks at finances, etc., all those things have helped me just from working a 9 to 5.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. You said obviously the work would take experience over a piece of paper, as you described it, or a degree. So if what would you say if you were hiring someone personally for yourself, would you prefer someone who has an apprenticeship or someone who has a degree and work experience?
I think it really, to be honest, it's with looking at CVs, it's like you get it's like a blurred picture of a person.
Mm,
So some people they can lie through the skin of their teeth on a CV, and then it will all come out in interview.
mm,
Um, so with CVs, I would never just hire someone on the basis of looking at their CV, because for me, I have to meet someone to then be able to establish whether that CV is even
mm.
validated.
But let's
um,
say, for example, if someone, what do you, in your personal opinion, what do you think would win, the degree and work experience for that year? Because obviously they would do a year work experience or the apprenticeship. So the apprenticeship 4 years or the degree 3 years plus a year of work experience.
it's so hard to say. Um,
Would you say there's
but
other
I
factors?
just from Yeah, I definitely think there's other factors, because there's also, as well as experience, like there's loads of roles that I've interviewed people for, and there's people who have so much experience. They're probably the most experienced candidate out of every single candidate we've seen, but then I choose not to proceed with them because they might not have personable qualities, in terms of they might come across quite blunt in an interview, or quite rude in an interview,
Mm,
or they might come across in a way where I don't feel like they will work well with other members of the team that I'm recruiting them for.
mhm,
So then those things would play a factor, and then their experience kind of goes out the window for me,
mm,
because as well as your experience, it's also about you as a person
mm.
and what personal qualities that you have as well that you can bring to an organization.
Okay. So can you tell us more about Change Blueprint?
Yes. Where do I start? What
So we'll
specifically?
probably go from the baseline to what you do and what you're trying to do. So
Mhm.
baseline, what is Change Blueprint? Obviously, we had the introduction, but kind of more
Yeah.
into it. What is Change
Okay,
Blueprint?
so in terms of Change Blueprint, so as I said, it's an initiative which provides home ownership as well as money management education. Um, so through that education, we provide it through providing content online, so things like videos and help tips in terms of money management and educational information on home ownership. And then, as well as that, we also do workshops for the public as well. And within those workshops, it will cover things like how you actually go about getting a property step by step, covering all of that, the help to buy schemes and minimizing risk and the reality of buying a property. And then we also go into institutions such as universities or schools or companies to then provide maybe more like seminars or workshops for that organization, depending on what they've asked for. So, for example, I did a few workshops in February where it was kind of like seminar talks on how to manage your money within uni and stuff like that. um and then it all kind of started mainly because so I bought a house at 23.
Mm.
So I bought a 3-bed house in Essex. However, I
What is
like
the average cost? Sorry. So what is because so why is that not usual or just to kind of get context? So is buying a house at 23 usual, unusual?
no.
What's it like? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's very unusual. So a lot of the time, I think even like I don't know what this age of 25 is. For some reason, it's like a magic age, but everyone's always like, yeah, by 25, I want to own a property, I want to be married, etc., etc. And then people get to like I don't know, maybe like 22 or whatever, and then they realize, right, 25 is actually as a very short deadline.
Mm,
Because especially now, like properties in terms of price they've gone up a lot, maybe from how much our parents were buying properties for. So, for example, my mum, I live in Brixton in South London, and the house that we live in, which is our family home, my mum bought for like £75,000, like 20 years ago. The house that I bought in Essex, I paid £230,000 for it,
that's
and that's
good.
not even in like South. That's not even in London, London.
More than triple
So
then.
exactly. So in terms of like buying a house now, there's a lot of people who are even in like their 30s and 40s who haven't bought a house. There's a lot of this generation that don't even think that it's possible to buy a house right
Mm.
now. There's this thing of generation rent whereby people think that I don't even like using the term millennials, but that millennials, we're generation rent and we can't own properties and we just have to rent for the rest of our lives. So there's a
Mm.
bit of a stigma around
Mm.
buying properties right now.
So would you say you do more property workshops or just financial education in general?
Yeah, I definitely say it's financial education. Because a lot of the workshops I do, everyone's always interested in the home ownership stuff. Because everybody wants to own properties and everything else. But I always say to people, even with me buying a house at 23, I don't ever say to somebody else that they should aim to do the same thing ever. I wouldn't go and say to someone, yeah, you should be aiming to buy a house at 21 or 22 or 23. I don't ever advise it because the whole thing with I can come and teach someone how to buy a property. However, if your financial habits are not where they need to be and you go and buy a house, I've done you a disservice because people always forget when people buy property or think about property, they're just like, yeah, asset. But if your property is not making money, it's not an asset. So if you don't know how to manage your money and you buy a house to live in and the house is not making money and you have poor money management, I've done you a disservice simply because you've now just got debt and you don't even know how to manage your money, let alone manage debt at the same time. So with the money management side, that's why it comes into play because before anyone buys a house, your money management needs to be A1 before you even think about buying a house.
So let's say someone was interested in getting financially educated. The first step would obviously be to contact you, Change Blueprint. What do you think the second step would be to kind of? So let's say they're waiting for a reply from you, because obviously very busy. So what do you think as they're waiting for that reply from you, they can do to take the first step in getting educated financially?
So first thing, I mean, It sounds so obvious, but there's so much content in this world that we live in. Even with buying a house, literally nobody told me how I go about buying a house. I literally just walked up to my mum one day and I was like, Mum, I want to buy a house. So I've got my deposit ready. Can you come on viewings with me? All the other information in terms of how I go about getting a mortgage, the process for buying a house, etc. I learned that for myself. I educated myself on that by literally doing research. So I think people first of all start off doing your own research, because even when like I do workshops or whatever, in every single workshop, I always tell people, do your own research. I'll tell you where I got my information and everything, because I want you to now go and look up all the information I've given you for yourself. Because what people do is they just take in information and they don't look it up any further. This person could have just fed you a whole bag of lies.
It's
They
cut
come back.
again. Yeah, it's back now. It cut from when you said. Oh, sorry. People are outside clapping. That's an that's an ambulance.
Oh.
Sorry. It's just okay. Sorry. So aside from that, it cut off when you said people could be feeding you a bag of lies.
Cool. Because yeah, people could be feeding you a bag of lies. So it's important to do your own research. And in terms of where you can do your own research, because we want to be practical, there's websites such as Money Advice Service. There's places like Money Saving Expert, which even has a program on ITV that comes on. But also you need to start to, in terms of educating yourself financially, there's understanding the practical side of how to manage money, but there's also understanding yourself in terms of money. So you need to start understanding how you view money, and also start understanding the habits of your family, because subconsciously people don't realize some of maybe like the bad habits of what their family carries out has now trickled down to them and they don't even realize. And that's
True.
the reason why they're so bad with money.
Okay.
So
Let's
yeah,
go on. Yeah. Sorry.
there's a practical side of like figuring out educating yourself on money, and then there's the self side of educating yourself on how your habits are with money. So yeah, there's kind of it's a two part education piece.
So can you hear? Is that?
Yeah, I can hear
Yeah. Sorry
so
about
your
that.
it's my one, I can't even hear nothing.
They seem to be going crazy. So that actually does lead on to the next question. How are you holding up during COVID-19?
I'm actually, do you know what? I'm grateful in terms of financially. I'm doing fine. That I've not lost my job. My company's actually doing probably one of the best years that they've ever done, to be honest, despite the circumstances. And I'm still, because I'm at home, I have a lot more time to actually, make content and work on other things. Do like one-to-one sessions with people and stuff like that. So for me, in terms of my position, I'm not really struggling from like a financial aspect. So I've been all right in this
Okay.
time.
Sorry for the background noise. It should finish in a second. That's just a bit. So
Yeah,
as you
gotta
said,
give big up the NHS.
so as you said, your company is doing pretty well. So that leads into the next question: is how has it affected? How has COVID affected your business?
um, I mean, it's mainly that I guess I can't do um physical events or workshops. So because a lot of my bookings would tend to be like universities and
Mm,
student unions like that. So that's kind of on pause. However, I don't really see it as a bad thing, because like I'm still able to reach out to other people during this time anyway, and I'm still able to network with people, which can then help to build me with opportunities after lockdown is over.
mhm,
Because I mean, you have big Instagram, you have Twitter, you have everything. There's so many people that you can be reaching out to right now.
mm.
So it's not like you're even in isolation. Like you don't need not everything. You don't even need to put everything on pause, because literally everything is still accessible, just in a different form.
Hmm. Okay, so just before we go on to the summary, I want to ask, could you quickly go on? So I remember you went into Bournemouth University and you gave there was a quote you said about students, how going to university and taking out a loan actually affects them buying a house. Could you go into a
Oh
little
yeah.
bit about that just for this video?
Yeah. So okay. So student loan. Well, the first thing is that I always say to people is I always ask people, okay, you've come to uni and you've taken out student loan, but at what stage when you were applying for that loan, was it explained to you how that loan impacts you in later life? And everyone always says it's never explained. And to me, I personally believe that it's unethical for people to be encouraged to just go and do something which they have to apply for debt, and is not a small amount of debt, and that debt is not explained in terms of what implications it can have for you later down the line.
Okay.
Because a lot of people, when they think of debt, they automatically think about credit. And with student loan doesn't actually impact your credit in any way. So that's one of like the only debts that does not impact your credit negatively in any type of way. So a lot of people think that it does, but it doesn't. So don't worry about student loan impacting your credit. However, what it does impact is when you come to buy a property, it's all well and good if you have a deposit. However, when it comes to buying a property, there's a lot of other factors that a bank will look at before they loan you money for you to be able to buy a house. So your credit is one of the things that comes into that. But then also the amount of money you earn is another factor. And with student loan, when you start earning a certain amount, obviously you have to start paying that student loan back. And because that student loan is coming out of your salary, it's reducing the amount of money that you actually earn. So when the bank comes to look at how much money you earn now, they're not going to look at the salary that your company offers you. They're going to look at the salary minus the student loan that comes out of your salary every single month, which means that the bank deem you to be earning less money. And the amount of money that you earn comes into play when the bank is deciding how much money they will loan to you. So when the bank looks at how much money they'll loan to you, generally, as there's other factors involved, but as a general figure, the banks will generally loan to you like 4 to 4.5 times roughly your salary. So if you plan to buy a house in London or on the outskirts of London, those houses are very expensive. So in order to be able to buy those houses, really you want the bank to be able to loan as much money to you as possible in order to be able to buy those houses. So student loan basically reduces the amount that the bank believe you own as a salary because it reduces your salary. And then in fact, in turn of that, it then reduces the amount that the bank is willing to loan to you. So if you want to be buying big house in London, you might not be able to get the loan in order to do so.
Okay. So at this point, we allow, obviously, normally it would be students, but we'll say companies, to kind of give a summary of everything we talked about. So you could talk about, obviously, your apprenticeship. You can obviously put your apps, your websites, Instagrams, Twitters, Snapchats, how we can access you, and just a little summary of just everything we spoke about. So the floor is
Mm-hmm.
yours.
Okay, so in terms of where you can reach me then, so Change Blueprint, we're on Instagram at change_blueprint. If you want to reach me directly, I'm also on Instagram at francesca.louise_. I am on LinkedIn. I don't generally use that as much, but my LinkedIn is Francesca Popo, Popo, like the police. Um, and then, in summary of what we've discussed, we've had a chat around apprenticeships. I've given my view on apprenticeships. I'm not about to go and tell everyone go and do an apprenticeship because apprenticeship is not for everyone. University is not for everyone. It's down to each individual, which is best for you. So I'm not about to tell anyone that an apprenticeship is better or uni is better. Depends on every person. But we've also had a conversation about money management, which everybody, please don't be what was in this COVID-19 with your money, because after COVID, I can tell you, if you haven't been sensible with your money, it's gonna hit you after lockdown is over. Because the price, everything is about to go up. All this money that's been loaned out by the government is gonna have to come back to them somehow, and it's gonna come back through all the things that you don't need to pay for. So be sensible with your money during COVID. And then we've also had touched on home ownership. So with student loan, just everyone, if you're applying to uni, if you're thinking about going uni, just be aware that student loan does not impact your credit, but it will impact your affordability when you come to buy a property later down the line. And it could then mean that the bank is willing to loan less money to you when you want to buy a property. But yeah, follow us on Instagram at change_blueprint. Reach out to me if you want to collab or if you have any other questions. I'm very open to answering. And yeah. That's
So
it,
if you just
really.
want to end it with don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'm plugged in. Like it's like a hashtag. I'm plugged in.
And I'm plugged in.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, okay, okay. All right. Okay. And I'm plugged in. All right. All right. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'm plugged in because
Thank
these guys are doing.
thank you.